So I said at the beginning of the liturgy 3 things. First, foundationally, the reason that we're up early on this beautiful day in here as opposed to being on the beach or someplace outside is our faith. That's the foundation. The belief system that there's something more, that we're just moving through. Limited shelf life we've been hearing in the last couple of weeks with the readings. And so with that faith and that belief system that we're just moving through, there's a way to be in the time that we've been given. So that's the first thing. Second thing is to not be afraid. How often do you and I, really, if we look inside, see that we're operating from a fear-based place? I have to have enough money. I have to have enough things. I have to buy this. I have to have that. I have to go here. I have to do, have to. It's all on some level, at least I see it in myself, as a fear-based motivation. And here's Jesus saying, don't be afraid. Let go of that stuff. Not only the material stuff, especially if we have more than enough when we can help somebody else out. Don't count the cost, just give it. I think he's also saying, let go of fear. Let go of that mindset that thinks we have to self-protect. And here's Jesus say, let go of all the stuff in this world that says you've succeeded. Whether it's every notch on the belt, every transaction that we've done that's successful, the finances, all the stuff that the world says you've made it. It doesn't mean squat. There's nothing left. Nothing. That story seems to illustrate it. Jesus says, store up instead for yourselves inexhaustible treasures in heaven, the stuff that really matters. And he modeled for us in 3 years the way to be. You don't take advantage of people. You don't sexually abuse. Would that our church and church leaders learn that along the way. You don't take advantage of the vulnerable. You don't cage human beings as we try to deal with the complexities that come forth with undocumented people and immigration. You treat people with dignity. Jesus actually went to the borders and the margins. He dealt with Samaritans, and by the way, the Jews hated the Samaritans, and yet he upholds the Samaritan as the one who did the right thing, who won't get the severe beating. So he says, don't be afraid. Give stuff away. And then lastly, he says, be ready. Now, I feel a little hypocritical because I'm saying these words, but I know I don't do this stuff perfectly, and I wonder if I'm ready. What does it mean to be ready? Not a fear tactic, but as I've said over the last weeks and years, maybe as a motivator. We're just moving through. It's clear today, we don't know the day or the time or the hour. I had a friend call me this week and tell me about cancer and how it's metastasized. Just like that, living life like you and I are living life right now, and all of a sudden life changes. Again, 3rd weekend in a row, you go to the Garlic Festival. We're going to the North End Festival today, St. Anthony's next weekend, whatever it is going to be. We're going on Boylston and Newbury, down to the seaport. You go to Dayton, Ohio, you go out for a night. You go to El Paso, you're going shopping, you're coming back from Walmart. And all of a sudden life what? Not just changes, but for some people it what? Ends. I think that's what he's referring to. We don't know the day or the time or the hour. It's the stuff of being a human being in this world, huh? So he says, be prepared, be ready. And I feel so hypocritical saying that because I know if I went right now, I'm not ready. I got stuff I haven't let go of, like some resentments and some grudges. And I've given more than they've given, and they don't, they're not as reciprocal, or they don't fully appreciate it. Look how easy that just came out of off my tongue, huh? All that stuff that we carry. I got more clothing and stuff, like we all do on so many levels, more material things than we need, huh? Regifting isn't a bad thing, it's a beautiful thing. It is, just move it on, huh? I don't know, these are the things I'm thinking about. Again, I wonder unconsciously, how much of that is fear-based? I didn't grow up in the Depression. I know my parents did, but it's like I did. Oh, got to hang on to this. I get people saying to me, are you kidding? What are you going to use that for? And they're right. If Jesus was aware of it 2,000 years ago, look at the stuff that we have today, the technology that we have today. What do we need to let go of? Literally, materially, and psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. So those are the three things. Faith, the realization, it says in Hebrews, of what is hoped for, and evidence of things not seen. How's that play in the medical world? How does that play in the real world? Evidence of things not seen. Well, how can you have evidence? You can't see it. But a belief system that there is something more. I don't know about you, but maybe our starting point, and I do think about this a lot, maybe our starting point as human beings says, we're it. We've got this life. This is the basis. This is the foundation. This is the structure. And from it, we then begin to think about, things eternal. What happens after that last breath? Life after death. Resurrection stuff. What if we change the place from which we're thinking about these things and say, maybe we're from that heavenly homeland that we hear about in the letter to the Hebrews. Maybe we're from somebody else. Not human beings, again, having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a what? A human experience in that 100 years, give or take. Maybe if that is our starting point, we begin to look in the concept of eternity, that this life that we've been given on earth, this 100 years, give or take, 330 or 130, is meant for us to be in a certain way and do something in a certain way. It's our mission. And maybe once we take that last breath, we're going to have the instantaneous realization. I'm just thinking about this stuff. It might sound crazy. We're going to have the instantaneous realization like, oh my God, the true heavenly homeland is out there. That's reality. That's eternity. This was just a pinprick on the journey of eternity, if we believe in things eternal. And Jesus talks about that stuff. Eternal Father. Eternity, the clock doesn't start once we take the last breath. Okay, enter into what? What do we say all the time? Entered into eternal rest. It's now, right? We're in it. If eternity has no beginning, we're part of it. We're in it. So again, what's the purpose for you and me in this life? I'm trying to stir things up on a Sunday morning so that we start to ask ourselves, what are we about as faith people? Just showing up at church, checking off the box, fulfilling the obligation? Just get a little spiritual pep talk? No. Does this make us think about what our very being is about? Again, in the time that we've been given, in the body that we've been given, with the mind that we've been given, with the opportunities that we've been given. Maybe we worked hard for, maybe we earned, maybe we didn't, maybe we inherited, maybe we just got, maybe we're just lucky enough to be born in this family, in this country, whatever the heck it might be, huh? What's your purpose? What's mine? Who are you guys going to grow up to be, huh? What do you want to do to make this world a better place? That's the mission that Jesus is interested in. That's eternal stuff, man. So these three things, having faith, not being afraid and giving things away, and being prepared and ready, maybe start to shape us. And then when we hear these horrible stories that happen, and we're barraged in the news, and we see the realities of what goes on in our country and in our world with the messy situations, maybe our faith then gives us a prism or a lens to look through as we try to deal with them. Am I ready? Are you ready? I'm not. I'm one of these guys too, like, I'm not afraid of dying, I just don't want the ride to end too soon. You know what I mean? Isn't that the case for most of us? We don't want to rush things. We want to look to be 94 years old, perfect bodily health like when we were 25. We still want to have that because most of our minds think, oh, we can still do these things. We want our minds to be clarion, clear, pure, everything's fine. We want all our kids to get along. We want to be fulfilled, no loneliness, no aches and pains getting out of, please. Just moving through. So first, having faith. Are you and I radically open to this concept of eternity and God as a foundation for our very being on this earth? Not having our earthly life be the foundation from which we look out and try to figure out faith in eternity. Do we have the faith that's open to a belief system in God, eternity, as the very foundation of our being? So that whatever comes out or about in this life, however long or short it is, healthy or unhealthy is, really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Easy to say when you're healthy, right? But it really doesn't in light of this way of thinking. So that losses, joys, death even, opportunities, goodness, even injustice. You know, my friends in AA and 12-step spirituality always talk about living life what? On life's terms. We put them on our terms. I put life on my terms so often. Life is supposed to be this way, God. This isn't supposed to go on in my lower back. Our faces are supposed to be as taut and wonderful as they were in their 20s. What is that about on some levels from a faith perspective? What is it to live life on life's terms with all of its beautiful stuff and all of its challenging stuff? Knowing that there is something more than this time on earth. You heard it in the Hebrews. Abraham believed. It says, by faith, he went forward in life not knowing where to go. That was his journey. How about you and me? Do we have a crystal ball? Do we know where we're going to go in life? Do we know what's ahead of us? Do we know what's even happening this week? We make our plans, but by faith, he went forward. He knew, I'm just going forward. Secondly, by faith, he sojourned into foreign places. That didn't just mean another country. It meant he went into places that were unfamiliar. Do you and I do that? Do we begin to look at those foreign places in our hearts that we don't want to touch and we want to stay away from, but maybe those places that can help us to grow or heal in our families and our relationships? Do we go to those foreign places where people are living in great discomfort? Will we go to the border? Or at least be interested by watching it on TV? Will we try to get all the different viewpoints as to what's happening and what's not happening? Will we go to those foreign places and take the risk at a very polite cocktail party or summer event to mention the issues that are so divisive in our country, church, and world today? Who wants to go to those places? That's a foreign trip most of us, self-included, don't want to take, but we're called to because of our faith. By faith, Abraham went there. And then lastly, by faith, Abraham received the power to persevere. It says in the reading, he received courage. What courage do you and I need to summon, to step up for what's right and speak on behalf of, as I've said oftentimes, the voiceless. But guess what? Those people have voices. They're just not able to be heard or not being heard, huh? What is it to help people hear their own voice and give them a platform? Abraham knew that he was a stranger, an alien in a foreign land, meaning just moving through life on this earth, and that he was seeking a homeland, as it says in Hebrews, a better one, a heavenly one. Do you and I believe this? Is our point of reference, are we open to shift maybe from the heavenly perspective, looking in the time that we've been given, as opposed to, no, I'm looking at everything from right here in the life that I now know? What is it to let go of material security and to store up for ourselves money bags that don't wear out, huh? That inexhaustible treasure in heaven. You know what that's about? Jesus is less interested in what you and I have passed on to our kids through inheritance and 401ks, all that kind of stuff, which is all necessary to varying degrees, right? We got to take care of ourselves in this world in which we live. So I'm not throwing all that stuff out, but it's where are our hearts? Jesus is much more interested with all of that. Did you take care of somebody? Were you attentive to the needs of those who didn't have as much as you? Did you share what you had? Did you listen to people on the deeper levels, not only as to what they were saying, but what they maybe weren't saying? Are you building up for yourselves, treasure in heaven by being of service and generous? Those are the things I'm asking myself. Are you, John? Fill in the blanks with all of our names. Are we, huh? And then third and last, be ready and be prepared. Because as we've seen in the last 2 weeks, none of us knows the day or the time of the hour. And looking at the stats of how many of these mass shootings took place in July, and since the beginning of the year, the number, I was like, I should have taken a screenshot of it or something. It was staggering, and now I don't remember it, but I was like, and it's becoming commonplace. I mean, do we even think of Las Vegas? They started naming these towns, and I was like, oh yeah. It's like it's everyday news. We don't know, huh? Or we get in the car and we're off someplace, and next day you know it, sad story in the paper. Not meant as a scare tactic, but as a motivator. Be prepared. Now is the time, he says. And so I leave us with the question that I'm asking myself. As we hear Jesus say in the gospel, blessed are those servants, that's us on this earth, whom the master finds ready, vigilant, courageous, possession-free, fear-free, vigilant upon his arrival. If you and I went today, would we be ready? Not fear and guilt, but motivation midsummer.